We began with developments in a deadly officer-involved shooting in Newport News. Earlier this month, an officer shot and killed 23-year-old Kwanzaa Beatty at 18th Street and Peterson's Place.
And today, the police chief held a news conference addressing recent calls from Beatty's family for a federal investigation. He also spoke about the officer involved.
10 on your side's Jason Marks was at the news conference today. Jason?
Nicole, Chief Myers says he wants to be as open as possible about this case and release whatever information he's able to, whether it's good or bad for his department.
I'd like to start by reiterating our sympathies to the family of Mr. Beatty for their loss.
Newport News Police Chief Richard Myers says he wants to be very transparent on the investigation into a deadly July 4th shooting. He says it started when a detective got a tip about a man carrying a shotgun. The detective was joined by a sergeant and a canine officer in the search for the suspect. They found him a short time later.
It was at that time that the detective observed Mr. Beatty's left arm to be held stiffly and close, tightly to his left side.
Chief Myers says the officers asked 23-year-old Kwanzaa Beatty to stop and talk, but then he took off running. At some point, we're told Beatty raised the sawed-off shotgun, and that's when the detective fired 3 times. He was about 20 feet away.
No other shots were fired, and one round struck Mr. Beatty in the head, and he immediately dropped to the ground.
Beatty was killed. Police say the shotgun was not loaded. They also say the detective who fired his weapon had been in a previous police-involved shooting, though the chief wouldn't go into detail.
We're not prepared to discuss any terms of the previous shooting involving that officer or any other officer.
Beatty's family has called for a federal investigation. Myers says he called the FBI to see if it wanted to send an investigator to help. The FBI declined.
We're happy to cooperate with whatever agency notifies us or contacts us.
And investigators say that they have interviewed at least 20 witnesses and officers combined in this investigation. They've also talked to one witness who heard police say, "Put the gun down, put the gun down," to Jamal Beatty right before that shooting happened. I can tell you his family is still very upset at this. Coming up tonight on WAVY News 10 at 6, you'll have reaction from them and hear why they still are calling for that federal investigation. We're live in Newport News. Jason Marks, 10 on your side.
Brand new details tonight in the shooting involving a Newport News police officer.
The chief outlined a timeline of events on what happened, what we know about the officer in the middle of the investigation, and the gun that likely led to the fatal shot. Investigations like this always have a lot of moving parts.
And we may not know the outcome for a while, but we do know a lot more about what happened. 23-year-old Kwanzaa Beatty was shot by an officer July 4th on 18th Street. We did learn today that the shotgun he reportedly pointed at police was not loaded, and the officer who shot Beatty was involved in a prior police-involved shooting. Then at your side's Jason Marks has more on how Beatty's family is reacting tonight. Jason?
Well, Tom, Beatty's family was not here at today's news conference. They say they weren't invited, though Chief Myers said that they called the Beattys and they just never returned the calls. Either way, the family wants more information about what happened.
We want facts. We want information.
Jamal Beatty's family says they still want to see federal investigators come to Newport News and look into how he was killed.
We want to know how this happened, why it happened.
Beatty was shot by a Newport News detective after a foot chase. Police say the detective shot 3 times after the 23-year-old pointed a sawed-off shotgun at another officer.
One round struck Mr. Beatty in the head, and he immediately dropped to the ground.
Chief Myers says the detective is a veteran officer and that the shotgun was not loaded. The department says it wants to be transparent about its investigation. Even released this photo of a sawed-off shotgun just days after, but the family isn't buying it.
There are various factors that causes the family not to trust this investigation or this investigative body, and for that reason they're standing firm on their desire to have an external federal investigation.
Myers says he called the FBI to see if it would like to help, but it declined.
We're happy to cooperate with whatever agency notifies us or contacts us.
One piece of information that's not sitting well with the family is the fact that the officer who pulled the trigger has been involved in another police-involved shooting in the past.
We're very concerned about the mentality We're very concerned about the training, and we're very concerned about the investigations that have allowed these officers to return to duty and shoot again.
And the chief would not go into detail on that previous police-involved shooting for that detective. I can tell you that the officers' names will not be released until the Commonwealth's attorney releases his findings. We're live in Newport News. Jason Marks, 10 on your side.